Joining us now, former State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus. It's great to have you with me today. Thanks so much, Morgan, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, there's hope. There's talks happening now. You see Zelensky kind of backing off, saying we don't have to be a part of NATO. We're reasonable people. What are your thoughts on the talks that are continuing on? Obviously, it's been very hard for his people, but morale is high for Ukrainians. But do you see that there could be some real progress here?
I don't know. I think it's too early to tell. It's certainly hopeful, as you said. And we always want Ukraine to be in a position where they're negotiating from a position of strength. Listen, I was in Kyiv, Ukraine, just 2 years ago, to February 2020, with Mike Pompeo. We met with Zelensky, who your viewers are seeing on the screen. We met with fighters, Ukrainian fighters who have been injured in Crimea fighting the Russians. These are tough and brave people. And so nothing surprises me out of the images we've seen these past few weeks coming out of Ukraine. I sort of liken it to a David and Goliath battle, and certainly in terms of hard military capabilities, the Russians have the advantage. But I think that the Ukrainians have the fighting spirit of David, and so they do have some insurmountable, some odds that could seem insurmountable in terms of Russian military hardware. So that's why, if we can get to a negotiated peace agreement, that would be preferred. However, I think that the big Hail Mary pass that the Russians threw over the past few days is the one to Beijing, where Putin, it's been reported and confirmed, I believe, by the Biden administration, that Putin is seeking to have Xi Jinping bail him out militarily and send him military aid and equipment. I haven't seen it reported or confirmed that the Chinese have actually done so. If they do, that would be a significant game changer, not only Ukraine, but for the entire world power balance. It's something people like me are watching incredibly closely.
Yes, and it was the topic, of course, of those conversations yesterday in Rome with Jake Sullivan and the top diplomat of China. And although there was a planned visit, obviously the timing of it came under this sort of umbrella on, China is still saying they're impartial, Morgan, on this. They're continuing to make oil deals, wheat deals in yen, and so in yuan. So obviously China is threading a needle here and very skilled at sort of playing both sides. And as you mentioned, the military support. The Kremlin saying we never asked them for that. So again, an information war that we continue to battle when it comes to them.
Yeah. We certainly shouldn't trust anything coming out of the Kremlin. Listen, the Chinese may be trying rhetorically, as you just very much pointed out, to thread the needle and to play both sides. But that's not the reality of what's happening. The reality of what's happening is China has sided with Russia at the UN Security Council. They have not voted against them. They have also solidified a relationship between Putin and Xi over the past 10 years. This is not something that's been in the making for a few years. This is something that goes at least a decade back. You also see on the ground Chinese journalists, war correspondents are embedding themselves with the Russian military to try and show the Chinese people and their affiliates around the world the Russian perspective. We're certainly seeing their propaganda efforts online be pro-Russian. So they may not have taken the leap forward yet to actually provide military equipment that would change the power dynamics of this war. But make no mistake, Xi Jinping and the Chinese have laid their cards, have gotten into bed with Putin, and they are firmly on the Russian side. Now, I'm sure they'd like to keep a little bit of leverage to keep trade deals with Ukraine because they were a prolific trade partner prior to this. But if there is any side that Xi Jinping has chosen, the facts bear the case that he has been on the side of the Russians. And that could be a total miscalculation by him and Putin if this war continues to go wrong.
Let's talk sanctions for a moment here.
Sure.
There were more sanctions announced today on 11 high-level Russian military leaders, but clearly these sanctions came very late. And now in return today, it's interesting, Russia responded by sanctioning President Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. So, I mean, we're kind of in a situation here where there's tough talk, but Putin knew that sanctions would be levied. And he planned for this. So it seems like the administration here is trying to have a result here that is not deterring a man who is just bent on doing what he wants in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, the sanctions today were symbolic. I think they are important. We should sanction these defense officials. However, my criticism of the sanctions policy of the Biden administration this entire time has been that it's been more about optics. It's been more about communications and less about the actual technical means to really decapitate the Russians and to cut them off economically. So what do I mean by that? They did make a big show of saying that we're not going to take Russian oil and gas anymore. Okay, fine. That's about 4% of what we are importing. However, because the Biden administration didn't put secondary sanctions on, what that means is that the Chinese, the Indians, whomever, anybody who wants to, can pick up those barrels of oil that we didn't purchase. Right? We didn't do what our administration did when I worked for President Trump and Mike Pompeo. We took the maximum economic pressure campaign against the Islamic Republic of Iran so that nobody could buy their oil. And that was a huge diplomatic effort. It took a lot of time to get there. Biden continues to do things like that with the oil sanctions, which are symbolic, but doesn't have the full bite, the full weight that you need. They did the same thing by sanctioning Russian banks. They sanctioned a few of them, but not all of the key ones. So they haven't done anything what we would call sectoral wide, right? Across energy, across finance. They haven't delivered the knockout punch. They've been afraid to do
Well,
that because that's how they have approached this skirmish the entire time.
reports that President Biden could be heading over to Europe next week, unconfirmed, remains to be seen, but we are watching. Morgan Ortagus, the former State Department spokesperson, as always, appreciate your insight. Thank you for joining me today.